Wow, would you look at that? I'm continuing this series and it's only been like 2 months since the last one. It's a miracle. Today I'm bringing you the letter F of my alphabetical order series, so I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. When I first decided that I wanted to do this sort of challenge series of videos, that's kind of a whatever. This is one of the first characters that I thought of, and this ever since I wanted to do this was the character for letter F. It's never been anybody else. I think he's neat.
You're always trying to give me
the Thunder Legion.
What is it with you? I just think they're neat.
He's one of the most underrated characters, and I will stand by that forever and always. He is the type of character that I really like, both in personality and visually, so there was no way around it. He had to be the letter F. At first, I had no idea what to draw, because I wanted all of these pieces in this alphabetical series to be consistent with one another, so I used the same canvas size, and then I also have like a similar pose thing for each of them. Like, they're all like sitting or crouching, and then the letter is incorporated somewhere in there, which helps to make them look more cohesive, but it's sometimes a challenge to make it look good. And for a while I just didn't know what to do for this. But then I had the idea, for those of you familiar with fairy tale, you would know as magic, which is like the runes thing. I forget the actual name, but that thing. They aren't actual letters, they're just like sort of like shapes and symbols, but I thought it would be really cool to incorporate that and then have the letter F be in that. And then so after I thought of that idea, the entire pose and everything kind of revolved around that, which was a little different from what I normally do. I'll be the first to admit, sometimes in the other drawings I just kind of threw the letter in there and was like, look, it's incorporated. But this one there's a lot more, like, I think more cohesion? I think they're a little bit more cohesive than the other ones, and they're more like interactive with one another, I guess. So the pose was, I wanted it to be a lot more actiony and a lot more like he was casting that spell. It's not it's just a visual thing. So the spell is looking cool. We love magic. After I had that concept, I decided to make some thumbnails of like similar types of poses. They're all generally the same thing. It was just mostly playing with specifics of the angle and like positioning of the hands and the feet and all that stuff. And then those in the thumbnailing phase that I actually had the idea of him like sort of reaching for his sword. Not actually grabbing it, but like reaching. He's reaching. Why did I struggle saying that? I'm an idiot. Okay. I had the idea of him sort of grabbing his sword or like reaching for it, so I really wanted to include that because I liked it. I thought it helped with like the sort of action-y pose that I had. I had a really hard time finding references for the sword. Like I said before, I think Frad is a very underrated character. And since he is underrated, that means finding reference pictures was hard. Sometimes if you're drawing an anime character, or like your character has a prop or something, it actually can be pretty helpful to look at cosplay stuff. For the outfits, I generally try to stick to like official art, but sometimes with props, like in this case, his sword, it's a lot easier to look up like a cosplay thing of it. What's the word? Like either something sold by like a costume company, cosplay company. Something sold by a company that sells cosplay stuff, or like find pictures of something someone made, but there wasn't really anything. I did my best. I mean, I think it's fairly accurate. The main issue with the references was I couldn't really find one from the angle that I needed, so I don't know if it's like super accurate, but it's accurate enough. I mean, it looks like his sword, so that's a win, right? Also, similar to the sword, I had quite a big issue with finding references for the runes. I thought that would be a lot easier because I think his magic is one of the more prominent parts of his character, so you would think that there would be some good reference photos, but there was not. I couldn't exactly look at the manga. I wanted a reference from the anime so I could get like the colors more accurate, and I wanted there to be a sort of a glowing effect, so I wanted to try and replicate that a little bit, and I wanted that to be more accurate. So I tried my best. I found a screenshot. I think it was from one of the openings, so I really relied on that. And basically I just copied some of the shapes and copied and pasted them, and then that was that. I also wanted to make the F look like it was a part of that. Like I said, the runes aren't really letters, but I tried to draw the F in a way that looked like it was a part of that, so I just copied some of the shapes from like the runes and applied it to the letter F. And then I also made it larger than the rest of them because I wanted it to stand out a little bit more. I figured since there was a lot going on with the runes, like the colors are a little like, you'll see. You'll see. If you don't know, you'll see. But there's also like the number of, there's a bunch of different shapes and everything. And it is like more in the background with Freed in front of it. So I wanted to make it larger, I guess, to just, the disrespect. I just wanted to make the F larger so then that way there's more of a focus on that. And it would be easier to find, I guess. I just think that if I didn't do that, it wouldn't really stand out. The pose itself was fairly dynamic. There's like foreshortening and everything and all that fun perspective stuff that us artists have to deal with. I wanted the background to kind of have that too. So what I ended up doing, I ended up putting like a square, a rectangle, a four-sided shape underneath him, which isn't normally a part of his magic. That was just an artistic choice on my part. And then I also arranged the runes in like another rectangle type thing. And it kind of makes like a box shape. I don't do this in the video, but off screen at the end you'll see like I added another sort of quote-unquote wall of just like a light gradient, and it kind of helps mimic that like boxy shape. And so I made the runes kind of just its own, again, quote-unquote wall of that, and I just played around with like the transform tool. One thing I learned recently about Paint Tool Side is that if you go to the transform tool, there's like a perspective bar thing, and so then when you transform, as you like mess around with the different like points of the, you know what I'm talking about, right? The little dot things. I'm waving my hand frantically as if that's going to help me remember, but it's not, but I'm sure you know what I mean. And like as you transform the shape that you selected, it keeps perspective in mind, which was very helpful. I used that a lot in this drawing, and I've been using it a lot in a lot of drawings, to be honest. So that's something that I definitely did. And then by the time I was finished with the sketch and I moved on to the line art, I decided to just leave the runes until last. I would just focus on the rest of the drawing and then do that later. My main line of I was going to say line of thought or something like that. What an ironic line to mess up. My main thought was that I wanted them to be, I guess, not really subtle, because I mean, they're quite obvious, but I just thought it would suit them better if I didn't outline them, so I just didn't, and then that was that. But here's something about this drawing. I spent a whopping 9 hours on it, which I don't remember the last time I spent 9 hours on a piece, if I've ever spent that long on a piece. I mean, I guess it's fitting that it's a fairy tale character. I've been obsessed with it since I was like 14 or whatever, so it's suiting. But oh my god. I think the main issue that I had, and like the main reason this took so long, was the fucking leg. I shared it on Instagram. I was having a really hard time drawing his one leg, the one that's like a little bit more propped up. Could not get the angle right for the life of me. I don't know at what point the video will be at during this point in the audio, but you've probably noticed or are currently noticing me struggling with the leg a lot. And what you see in here isn't even all of it. Like, I messed around with it off camera too, so there was a lot. My total recording time for this was like 9 hours and 11 minutes or something. It probably, in reality, took me probably like 9.5 hours because of how much I was messing with things off camera. I could not for the life of me get the angle right. Like, I played around with different angles, I played around with like different positionings, and like having the knee higher up, or having the knee lower down, or having the foot more in the forefront, or having it back farther next to the other foot, but nothing looked right. And I wanted to die. I don't know, aside from not being able to get the angle right, it just felt like no matter what I did, it always looked stiff, which is not what I wanted. I think in the end, it looks fine. I mean, it's still not perfect, but it was the best attempt that I could muster. So let me know your thoughts on that. And then also, right at the last minute, before I did the line art, I decided, hey, let's just redraw the face. Because fuck it, am I right? I already spent a lot of time on this. What's another hour? If I didn't redraw the face, it would probably be 8 hours, but I spent another good chunk of time redrawing the face, because I mean, I already spent so much time on this. What's another hour of my life that I'll never get back? I say that like I had a really bad time. I really enjoyed this. It was nice to be able to just take time and draw fan art. I don't normally spend this much time on fan art. Fan art's usually just like a sort of throwaway thing for me. I think most of what I make on my channel is original stuff. Like, I'll talk about my characters and my stories a lot, and that's kind of like a staple of this channel, so it was a nice change of pace to just get lost in the fan art, I guess. But at the last minute, I just thought of a different angle of the face that I thought might look better. What I did, again, off camera, I'm pretty sure it was off camera, I copied and pasted the face onto a separate layer and then deleted it on the original sketch layer. So then that way I would sketch a second face on a third layer, and then I could like switch between them, like just flick back and forth really quickly to see which one I liked better. And after like a really rough like blocking out of the general idea, was that a sentence? I'm gonna pretend it was and move on. After I did that, I decided that I did, in fact, want to take the time to change the face, so I deleted that, and I redrew the face at the angle that I wanted, which I'm really happy that I took the time to do, because after I drew the second face and looked back on the first face that I drew, I liked it so much better. Normally when I'm filming videos, I think I just go with my first instinct to try and like get things moving along faster and speed up production, but I'm really happy that I took the time to change it. I think it turned out a lot better that way. On to the line art phase, there's nothing spectacular to say about it, although I feel like every time I talk about a piece and I talk about the line art, that's exactly what I say. I don't know, I kind of zone out during line art. I know there's a lot of people who find line art kind of tedious, but I find it relaxing. It's something mindless that I do, and I just kind of just go for it. So I just outline the things I already drew, and it's nothing fancy. So moving on from the line art, I went to the coloring phase, and I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but whenever I color, like if I'm making fan art or something, I never really use the eyedropper tool. I don't know why, I think it looks weird. I don't know if that's just me. I know a lot of people use the eyedropper tool to get like the exact color match of the characters, but I don't like it. I can't really explain why, it just looks off to me, which it really shouldn't, because it's literally the character's colors. So literally, I just eyeball it and hope for the best. Which is exactly what I did here. The quick breakdown of the way that I shade is that I'll use a multiply layer and I'll clip it to the flat colors layer that I have. I just have all my flat. Good job, Oliver. You know how to speak. Some people break up their flat colors into like several layers, so they'll have a layer for the hair and then a layer for the skin. I just do it all on one layer, I don't care. And then I'll have a multiply layer like clipped to that. And I always have 4 different colors that I use on that. It's all of like the same hue, but like different saturations and intensities of it to get like the different tones of shading. And I usually just pick one hue and then I go for that. And I knew I wanted to have like a purple to shade it with because the runes are purple. So I wanted to make the shading purple, because matching. I thought it would be a nice way to make everything nice and, what's the word? What's the word? There's a specific word. It would bring a unity to the piece, I guess. For the highlight color, in Paint Tool Psi, like the first version, I would use a luminosity layer, but in Paint Tool Psi 2, which is what I currently use, the layer modes were changed a little bit, so now I use shine and I just turned the opacity way down. And then I mated the highlight orange. I made the highlight color like an orangey yellow. No real reason, that's just typically what I use for like a highlight color. It's usually like a yellow or an orange or somewhere in between, unless there's like a special sort of lighting in the drawing. That's just what I do for highlights. And then for the runes, oh boy. I had no idea how I wanted to tackle them other than having no line art. That was all I had. So what I decided to do, I started off with one layer where I just blocked in the shapes. It was just like a simple flat color. I didn't know how many layers I would end up using when I first started it. So there was like the base layer, and then I think it was, I can't remember if I did this on the same layer or on a separate layer, but I just added some different tones of purple, like a really light one, a really dark one, and I blended it out just to make it all like, this is just some variety of tones in the base layer. And then I was staring at the reference picture for a long time, figuring out how to replicate that sort of effect because I've never done anything quite like that before. I don't know, it's very strange. It's a very strange look. It looks cool, but just, I was very confused on what to do. And so after that, I made another layer on top of that, and I used a lot of the same colors. Like I would eyedrop the colors on the runes underneath and just make random squiggles. And then after that, I did something which I never do, which was I used the smudge tool. I've never found a purpose for the smudge tool until now. It's a very, I hate that tool. I don't know, I never found the effect is very, very hard to use. This is the first time I've ever used it ever in a drawing, but it was exactly the effect that I needed, so there we go. The smudge tool isn't as useless as I thought. Legitimately, if you know any purpose for the smudge tool, let me know, because I am very curious on what anyone even uses that for. But then after I did that, I used even more layers to try and make like a blending of, not a blending effect, a glowing effect, that's the word. I used another layer on shine and lowered the opacity to help make it look more like glowy. And then I can't remember which layer it was, but on one of the layers, Paint Tool Side 2 has a Gaussian blur, is that how you say it? I don't even know. I'm sure other programs have it too, but just to add a blur to like the edges. I didn't want to go too overboard, but I did my best to make it look like a glowing thing. And then I think that blur in combination with the shine blending mode, I was able to make like a glowing looking effect. I used the airbrush tool to touch up some spaces, but I try to avoid the airbrush tool a whole lot. I think if it's a prominent tool in your art, it can look a bit odd, so I try to stay away from it. But in this case, it was able to work out fine, because I mean, it was already blurry from the Gaussian blur. So it worked out fine. And with that, it was just a matter of doing final touches, and then I was done. Which is just like white highlights. I put the highlights in the eyes. I'll sometimes put white highlights like on the cheek or on the nose. I don't remember if I did it in this drawing. You guys will know the answer before I do. And then I also decided to add a white outline to Freed. I don't know, sometimes with a background or a background element like this, it's better to have that outline to keep that separation just to make the character pop a little bit more. But with that, I was done. There we go. There he is. I'm continuing the series. Are you happy? I do know who I'm going to pick for the letter G, so hopefully it won't be too long before that. Hopefully it'll take about 2 months or sooner. We'll see. So I think at one point there was like a 6th month or 7th month gap between 2 of the episodes of this series, so hopefully it won't be that long. So here we go. I don't have anything else to say about this drawing, so I hope you liked it. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked the drawing, if you like Freed, and if you don't like Freed, let me know what character you like whose name starts with the letter F. I'd like to hear it. And also feel free to guess who I'm doing for the letter G. If you know me at all, it's probably pretty obvious. But let me know your thoughts on this drawing. I would love to hear it. I spent a lot of time on it, a lot more than I thought I would, so yeah, tell me you like it, please, or I'll cry. And if you're new here, hello, my name is Oliver. I post a new video every single Wednesday, and bonus videos whenever I can. I share my art on this channel. It's a super fun time, at least I'd like to think so. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. I'd really, really appreciate it. And if you also want to see more from me, you can follow me on social media, which will be on screen now and linked in the description box below. I post my art to Instagram, so if you're looking for more art, go over there, but if not, then just anywhere is fine, or you can not follow me, I don't really care. And there will also be some videos on screen now and linked in the iCard for you to check out if you want. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so, so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.